So my journey started kind of early. I actually got my first period when I was 9 years old, which is super early to
That's
get.
early.
And then it was regular until I was 15. And what happened was, with the irregularity, in addition to the irregularity, I should say, was horrible hair growth, which many women with PCOS get, like on my face and on my chest, and also like on my stomach, kind of like what males have almost. So between these things and just by my mother really just said, it's time to take you to the doctor. It's time to figure out what's going on. So I didn't really, all I just kept saying to her was like, this is my normal, and we knew that that was not the normal, right? So I actually was diagnosed at 15, which is 30 years ago now that I've been living with this. On top
Right.
of it, I have insane hormones. I remember a doctor once took my hormone levels and she told me I had 3 times the level of testosterone that a woman was supposed to have.
That explains the hair
So,
growth.
exactly. Yeah. And the weight in a way too, but
Oh, yeah, sure.
PCOS also can lead to insulin resistance. So for many women, it is also the idea of you could be pre-diabetic. So you have to be very careful with, what are you eating? And I've now had to go on metformin to try and help with that. So yeah, so it's a lot of things that you have to sometimes deal with on top of the mental. I'm more open about sharing this with people as I've gotten older because I've come to realize that it's not talked about a lot and more women have it than we realize. It's a silent, syndrome. You can't really see it by looking at me. You can't really tell by looking at any woman. And yeah, like I've met women who have gone like a year or two without being diagnosed from the first time they start speaking to their doctor about it until they actually are diagnosed. And
Wow.
I think part of that is, well, there's I think a couple of things. I think one, it mimics other diseases, other things, sorry, I'm losing my words.
It happens.
It mimics other syndromes and things that women have to deal with. So in some ways, or at least the symptoms do. The pre-diabetic part that I've been dealing with for the last year and a half or so, that's actually through a primary care physician.
Mm.
But she's a primary care physician. I did some research. She has great knowledge of women's health issues. So when I went to her and said, we sat down and we started chatting, and I said, I have PCOS. She knew exactly what I was talking about. She knew exactly what it meant. She was able to connect the dots very quickly. So I do think that finding doctors who have some knowledge of women's health, to have a PCP who has that plus the OBGYN together has been incredibly helpful. The doctor this week said to me, hormone replacement therapy may have to be something that we start to look into.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, but that will also mean, so here's kind of like the tricky thing with this is in order to have your period, you have to take the birth control. So, but in order to get the actual hormone levels that my body has, I have to stop the birth control so that my body can so my body gets rid of the hormones that it's being given, and then it can say, oh yeah, here's what your hormones actually look like. So my doctor and I were talking this week about what does that look like for me, and how will that affect also the symptoms of menopause? How will that affect the hot flashes? How will that affect the brain fog? How will that affect my mood? So
That is
there's
tricky.
kind of like a web of things you have to consider before I can start making any decisions moving forward. We'll see what that looks like. I don't know yet, but right now we're gonna stay the course with a new dosage of birth control, and we'll see how that. I have noticed, though, first of all, there is a PCOS Awareness Association, it's called. I found it on Instagram, as a matter of fact. They have their own Instagram page, and they work to provide information, resources, advocacy, help connect women to other women of all ages. I've seen some things that they have for teens, but then they also have things for older women who have been going through this for a while. And I've seen more women talking about it online. So I haven't really joined I haven't joined a group, but I do talk about it more now.
Thanks for joining us on the Healthcare Uprising. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons before you go, and take a moment to think of a friend and hit that share button. You can find us on all the major audio platforms, and we've got video on YouTube if you want to watch us in action.
You can also find us on social media on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. Just search Healthcare Uprising to find us. And if you're a new company with a cool new product, if you're someone innovating alternative methods for the health and wellness space, or if you have a personal healthcare journey you'd like to share with us here at The Uprising, please email us at healthcareuprising@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you about coming on the show. Well, that's all for this dose of Healthcare Uprising. Until the next time, keep looking for the good in the world, because sometimes it's where you least expect it.
We are not doctors and we don't play one on TV. If you need medical advice, consult with your physician or a healthcare professional. This has been a Shut Up production.